Okay, so this is the background. This is the footage. Basically, a very simple tracking. We have moving objects inside the tracking. I use PFTrack, the new software that we have installed in AUT. So you have Bujo and PFTrack for tracking your shots. I use PFTrack, but I use it very basic. So for a very complex shots, you will learn it in different course taught by Ali. So this is the background, and for the lighting, I use the lighting sampling of the room. The lighting sampling is basically just an HDR photo. So HDR is a combination of different exposures. You have to merge these exposures together and get this HDR image. So basically, yeah, this is from the previous class for photogrammetry. So basically, you see that this is an HDR image. This is the latitude of this image is higher than, so this will be used for lighting my scene. So how do you generate that? You will learn it, but quickly, there is a free software. There is a paid software called HDR Shop, but we don't have access to that. So we use a free software called Luminance HDR. You can just download it and install it and use it for merging your HDR images together and generate an HDR file. So now it's time to open the PFTrack and start tracking this shot. PFTrack, would you like to get in start? No. I'm fine. Okay, so this is PFTrack. We start a new project. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my footage. What's going on here? Okay, so we have a untitled project. I'm gonna delete that project. I'm gonna create a new project. Tracking tests. It's gonna be on, let's say, I just save it. Well, where it is on documents. I confirm. So a new project gets formed. Let's import my files. My file name, the address is on here. So if it wouldn't be able to import the MP4 file, I use a okay. So it cannot. You see that it cannot import MP4. So I have to load as JPEG. Okay, the project is here. Data management is cache. So on K drive, School of Art and Design, Hussein. Where I'm. Yeah, there it is. VFX and footage. What about here? So it doesn't load. So let's load just the test. Okay. Okay, so the footage has been added. Oh, they changed the layout, so that's why I just got a bit confused. So the first thing I would do, I will start adding a user track. Okay, tracking user track is added. So what I would do, so you see that with middle click you can zoom in and zoom out with, oops. So I select a couple of points that we want to track through the, so first of all I guide the tracking with a couple of user tracking. It means I direct that tracking. So I look around and see which point is always in the scene. So that little dot in the corner, so I create one track in the corner. So you see that you can adjust it here. There's a bunch of settings here. So like deformation, all the three things, best accuracy, maybe, yeah, the threshold is fine. Yep, you can save that as, so illumination, you can turn it on if there is flickering in the image, but just I set that as default, and then you can start tracking. You will see that I press this and you will see that it starts tracking that little point. So you can stop whenever you see that it just goes off center, so it just loses the point, and you just can like redirect your tracking and it adds a keyframe. So you see that a keyframe has been added over there. So it's all fine, all great. Okay, this is one point here. Oh no, so you see that it just stopped here. So I add a keyframe here and I track again. Okay, cool. Like a bunch of other points, maybe that other one on top. Yes. Okay. I create another point, another guide point here. I make it larger. So you see that it gets larger in here. So I realign it. And then I track forward, gets tracking. So you just keep an eye on this little window down here. If it stops, it means that it lost. Okay, because the lighting changes. So the lighting changes drastically. So I should have turned on this illumination. Anyway. Okay, so these two tracking guide, so these are tracked manually, but I will add a bunch of auto track. But before adding that, it's good to add a mask. So oops. So we can create a mask somewhere. Okay, I just add an auto track anyway for now. Auto track. and I track, and so in the auto track, so the candidate number, I just increase it to 150, you know, just for the sake of better accuracy. Target number, maybe, I don't know, 80. Window size 41, which is fine. Search range is fine. Feature scale large, takes a bit longer, but tracking becomes so search mode optical flow, this gives the best result. Deformation, again, select all the rotation, scale, and skew. Local, okay, it's all good, and then you just press the auto track. Maybe before auto tracking, well, maybe before auto tracking you create a mask here. You see, the reason I'm going to create a mask, because the hand, her hand is moving, so it just confuses the tracking. So just basically add a Bezier roto around her hand, just quickly. Okay, and then I just go back, move the points around. They changed a lot of layout in this new version, so that's why I just get confused sometimes. Okay, quick. Sorry, I don't take too much of your time. A moving object inside your scene. Well, basically tracking happens based on parallax. It means that, well, by just calculating the distance between the points that are close to us and the points that are further back from us. So a moving object inside the scene confuses the tracking software. So that's why we add masks for them. So yeah, I think we are fine now. Just quickly, last ones. It doesn't need to be accurate, just rough idea. And then here, okay. And the hand out of the frame. Just put things out. So if you want to add anything to your scene, you need to track it. So tracking is because there are a lot of camera movement in your shots. So tracking is the important. So basically, this is what happens. Things that the mask. Oh, the mask is not accurate enough, but that's all right. So I go back to the auto track. Double click on that. Okay, I turn off the mask and I click on this auto track. It starts tracking, so it just scatters some points around and starts tracking them. So some of them, like these ones that are close to this, so anything shiny will confuse your tracking. So I once the tracking is done, I will delete whatever feature points that are added on top of shining surfaces, like here. I will delete all of them. I will delete whatever is added here because you cannot trust them. Because the shiny surface, the feature points, they just travel around. So like feature points that are added on this surface, they're not trustworthy. So you see that no tracking points are added on her hand because we masked that out. So I pause the recording. Okay, the tracking is done. So the first thing to do is just to look at what is not working. So I can guess that all the points that appear on shining surface, like this one, so you just go and select them like that one, and you press delete and then enter. Delete and then enter. By enter you approve. So all the points that appear on the, you see that those points that appear on the corner of, so delete, enter, delete, enter. One of the way that you check that if a tracking point works fine, you just select it and just look at here. So, and then scrub through the timeline. You will see that it just like it's not staying on somewhere. So it means that it's not a trustworthy point. So I just delete and enter, delete and enter. So whatever, well, for some reason, whatever, yeah. So you see that all these points that show up here, they are not trustworthy. Delete, enter. So what about these ones? So I select that one. So basically it is attached to that little corner, so it works fine. That one works fine. What about these ones here? So let's look at here. You see that it travels everywhere. So it's a terrible tracking points. You delete that. Okay. So those ones here, we don't want them. We don't want this one. Okay, they're all gone. Okay, so let's solve the camera. We don't want this one as well. Delete. Yes, I think we're fine. Now, once you've deleted the wrong tracking points, so whoa, I see a lot of wrong tracking points here. I have to delete them. So delete, enter, delete, enter. Delete, enter, and delete, enter. Okay, that one as well. Okay. And now I add, right click, add solving, camera solve. So now it's time to solve the camera. So it should be connected to here. So pretty much you just click on solve all. You just solve everything. So it gets solved. So you see that we have lots of points added. Okay, show horizon, we don't need it now. So show names, show info. Okay, so you can go to the, so just by looking at things you will realize that things kind of work, but there are a lot of red dots. It means that they are not tracked properly, but that's fine. Let's add another point that is called orient scene. Where they put that orient scene? Orient scene, that one. Okay, so this is, so you see that the center of this universe is not like that. It's, so first of all you can say, okay, just grab this point here. I'm not going to show the horizon line and the trackers. Maybe the center would be this. I select that one and I say the set origin. The origin jumps over there. And then I select axis. It gives me a couple of axes. I just start with like a Z axis. So we have to adjust that the Z direction. So Z direction, so you just have to grab two of these lines. So maybe I just start this line from here to here. So this line is aligned. And another one maybe here on the corner. So this one is aligned too. Now let's turn this off and turn X on. So this is X direction. So basically the first one is that. The second one can be in the edge. You can work on the Y direction as well. So like straight lines are, one of them are here. The other one is here. Basically the Y direction is working fine. So when you turn everything on, you will see that there is a proper positioning. So again, I have to move the center. So it's on the floor, the center. I just want the center to be like here. I go to the and then select that one again, or maybe that one. Set origin. The origin jumps up. Okay, so that's a nice tracking. Very, very rough, quick tracking. So you can add some test objects, like geometry test object, to test it now, and then, so like, I don't know, a co-head. So just a test object is added, and then you just see if it works in that scene. Okay, it works fine. So all good. I don't need test objects. You can delete that one. And then what you can add is exporting. Export the camera. I export it as FBX, which is a good format for exporting. FBX 2010. Well, that's a nice format to export. Export scene. You see that it gets export in the documents folder where the source was. So exported. Now we go to Maya and we import it inside Maya. It was on documents folder. It's inside my documents folder. So test. So you see that I can see that this is the, so the camera is like, and this is the table. I can see that the surface. So if so first of all, if you want to make the whole scene larger, just select the group and make it larger to the size that you want. Okay. Why there is no okay, we can add, go to the camera, view image plane, import image, we can import that image sequence. So the image sequence was here. So so when you export out of Premiere or After Effects an image sequence, just look at the naming. The naming is like the name. Here it is test, and there's a dot, and there's the frame padding 000, and then there's dot, and then the extension. That first dot is important. Maya is so stupid, it cannot import. So when you go to, so this one, like, look at that. So there is test, no dot, and there's the padding. So Maya cannot read that one. So I just, so make sure that when you export with a proper naming. So it basically should be, so I'm on a notepad. So name, dot, and then your padding, your frame padding, and then dot your extension. The extension might be OXR or JPEG or PNG or whatever. So I select the first one, it gets opened, and then I tick this image sequence. So I turn on the, so you see that, okay, everything works fine here. The image depth is too much, maybe 50, just get closer, 30, okay. So now we have a tracking done. It was very quick. So now I start adding objects here. So I start adding a plane. So when I look through the camera, you see that the plane is like on the right place. So I use that as a shadow catcher. Okay, so you see that that plane is just there. It sticks to that place. So let's rotate it a bit. Yeah, all good. Okay, all good. Now I bring my character. Well, let's bring some very quick character. Where is your what was that? Bouncing ball rig. Okay, there's a bunch of quick rigs, free rigs here. So ultimate rigs for free. But we can start with this character and then add like fire on his head. But well, we have to animate, so it takes some time. So I just grab a very quick ball, bouncing ball here. Oh my god. No thanks. Download. Direct download. And I save it on extract it here. Okay, so just import that scene, that rig into Maya scene. Is it added? No, not yet. Do it again. Added. Okay, so this is the ball, and now I start. You see that it's just there. So now what I can do is that I start from like somewhere around here, and then it just sees the person and says, "Wow, look at you, and then starts jumping toward the person, and then finally lands on her hand. So there will be some masking on her hand as well. So it lands on her hand. Okay, so I start from like, oops, here. So maybe a couple of, I do a couple of quick animation. So I just block the animation quickly. So it's here, and then like maybe jumps. Turn on the auto key. Copy this key, paste it here. Copy these, paste, well, copy these two actually. Paste them here. So the ball is like jumping, and then bouncing, and then here waits and says, okay, so I can add a keyframe on here and say here says, oh, look what's there, look, and then suddenly goes back, wow, and then pauses there for a while, wow, and then starts, add keyframe here, well, and then here come forward, you see that the floor slides slightly. It's because the tracking, so you see that I had no time to remove a couple of false tracking. So those are the ones that are creating this problem. So yeah, but you will do a lot of tracking anyway. So let's go for fixing the animation first. So here jumps, like jumping, and then falling. So like here is zero. Next one is jumping. Okay, this one should be okay. Is it okay? I think I'm gonna delete these keyframes anyway. Go back to the first position. Was standing, so it was like, wow, what happened? And then here moving a bit forward. So first jump, second one comes here, maybe a bit earlier, but yeah, a bit sooner, just here. First one go up as well, second one, okay, it needs to land, second one go up and land here. So like one jump, second jump, and then can wait a bit here and then Shift W and E, and then here maybe here jumps on her hand here. Okay, so jumps on her hand, but you know, then so maybe I just render like 120 frames, so not everything. So then it slides on her hand because her hand, so when jumps on her hand, just make sure that you animate it a bit so it just feels that it stays there. So like, okay, now I play around with the animation curves first. So I go to the animation graph editor, you know the stuff, I make them all. So let's start play with the y-axis. I make them all, I break them first, and then I make them like so bouncy. Yeah, you can make them look about. Let's select these, press F, Shift, Alt Shift, right click. So just for a better view, bouncy. It's too much here. Bouncy. So you know that the flat line like here means the no movement. The vertical line means movement at its maximum speed. So basically what happens now is like it's at maximum speed when it hits the floor. And then, okay, so yeah. And then when it reaches to the peak, it slows down until it stops and then just falls back again. Okay, just some. I have to break that point as well and make that. Okay, so now I have some nice jumping. So right click, playback speed, real time. Bang, 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 bang. Wow, what's that? Jumping, and then coming to the hand. So now let's add some squash stretch. So squash, stretch, squash. Oh, sorry, stretch, squash, stretch. Oh, not that one. Select the middle one. Next keyframe, select the top one. Squash. Select the middle one. Next keyframe, select the top one. Whoa, that was a stretch. Squash. Middle one. Next keyframe, top one. Stretch. Here a squash, and then next one, stretch, next one, squash, next one. Okay, so stretch, so it has to come to the to regular position. Well, come to the regular position. Okay, so let's play it. Bing, 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 bing. Whoa, what's that? Okay, so you see that there's a anticipation here, but I just increase the anticipation. It's like wow, wow. Okay, and then freezes, and then here we have to, before jumping, so I have to find the jumping time. It's like here. Okay, so this should not be too far from the jumping time. So the jumping happens now. So like right before the jumping. Okay, so I add a keyframe before, like here, Shift W. Jumping is here, so 3 frames before that, add an anticipation. Okay, so it's like wow, and then the jumping happens. Jumping. Now we have to go to the jumping peak, stretch. Oh no, sorry. Jumping peak, stretch, and then a squash, and then select the middle one, stretch, top one, stretch. Same process again, but just I make it like leaning forward because the ball is very excited to see her friend. Squash, stretch. Okay, so here before jumping, you see that it just like flies, but before jumping we need a proper here it's better to be down, and then few frames top, and then down again and jump. So it's like bang bang, whoop. Okay, so the middle one should be like her best try, and then we see landing. And then okay, landing, become normal, 0, 0. Wow, normal. And then it stays normal, just slightly. Okay, I have to delete the keyframe. Okay, so let's review the animation. Bang bang bang. Wow, what's that? Yay! Boom. Okay, not a perfect animation, but fine for now. So let's assign some shaders and then try to render the animation. I'm going to find a moment, so like here. I wish, so there's an issue with Redshift at the moment. They're gonna fix it. I stop recording for now, then we move on to the next step, which is rendering. I take a breath. Okay, let's move on. So we're going to render this scene. First of all, we have to get rid of this plate, but we want it for the shadow. So what I do, I apply a shadow catcher material on it. So the default shadow catcher material in Maya is this little circle. It's called use background. Okay. So first of all, let me add just a very basic light to the scene, like this light. Okay. This is a directional light, and you will see that when we are going to use that that HDR that we made out of the environment. So when I render this in like Arnold, the default renderer, and maybe yeah, everything defaults. So when I render that, you will see. So this is like when it is. I want a moment that it hits the floor. Okay, maybe that time. So this is not a proper lighting. So this is not a proper lighting of the objects in the scene. This is not the shadow that you expect, and this is not a proper lighting. So what you can do, so you select that one, add a use background, render, auto region render. So when I add a use background, it doesn't work for Arnold. Okay. So for the Arnold, we go another way. But let's figure out the lighting first. The Arnold has a shadow catcher material. Every different rendering engine that you use, they got their own. So you see that AI shadow matte or Arnold shader surface. Yes, that's the one. Okay. Arnold shadow matte. I am going to middle click, create one, middle click and drag and drop it onto the scene, and then try it out. It should not work by default, but it works anyway. So it used, this is Arnold version 5, I believe, which is the one that they fixed a lot of issues. Okay, that's fine, that's good. So shadow matte, the shadow is there, the lighting is not right. So what I do, I just go and create a proper light. So this light is not so this is a very complex lighting situation. The lights are coming from the windows and lots of light sources on the ceiling. So the HDR sampling from the scene is a way of bringing all the lights from the scene to the shot. So I delete this one and I go to the Arnold lights. I create a sky dome, and this sky dome in the color, I use the HDR image that we created. Click File, point at the HDR image. In the project, the HDR image is located here. HDR, you see that one? So I use that as the lighting reference for the environment. So you just add so just look at see that the whole room is around it. So that's the HDR. So you just add a sky dome. So the redshift has a dome light Arnold called it sky dome. You just add that light and then you just load the HDR. And then you render a couple of times to figure out the right amount. Get rendered. Okay. I'm not recording these. Do I? Yes, I am. I am recording. Okay. Sorry. It was like. So the reason that we use Redshift is that the Arnold is too slow. So first of all, let's make this light invisible. So the sky dome light, Arnold. You see that, well, it matches with the lighting and the environment, but it doesn't match with, it's too bright. So you have the, so you can start playing around with the color balance here, or what I recommend you is to just go to Photoshop and adjust the HDR, darken it. So I open Photoshop, and I drag and drop this HDR. I save as, well, or yeah, I save as HDRI2 without any compression, and then I make it darker. Adjustment, exposure, darker exposure. Yeah, maybe something like that. It's too bright. Okay, and then you save it. Inside Maya, you just go here. You are reading HDRI, make it HDRI2. And what I'm going to do, I am going to hide, to delete the image plane. So that's why I save that as a new scene. I save it as test tracking 1, and then I save as test tracking 2. Test tracking 2, and then in the second one I just go and select the camera, and then I go to the image plane, and I down here I select the image plane and I press delete. So the image plane is gone. Now I just render out with the sky dome, just with the sky dome, so there's no image plane there. So the reason we use GPU-based renderer like Redshift is that Arnold is desperately slow. Okay, now I'm going to turn off the visibility of the sky dome light as well. So I select it and just have okay, it casts volumetric shadows. It's an interior light. Okay, so you see that in the visibility section we have visible to, so the sky dome is visible to transmission, diffusion, specular, subsurface scattering, everything, and it is also visible to the camera, but we don't want to see it inside the camera. So I turn off the visibility to the camera and render it again. So now you see that the ball has been rendered with transparent background. But where is the shadows? Where are the shadows? So if you turn on the alpha, you will see that, well, the shadows are there. So this plate works as a shadow catcher for us. So that's why it's important that it matches with the like edges. What I do now, I just adjust the quality of the lighting, because you see that it's just like very noisy. So I go to the setting, Arnold render, resolution 720p is fine, is enough. Let's call it bouncing ball. Arnold render AA2 is enough. Diffusion 4. And this is not a proper shading on the ball. So I'm going to use some Arnold shaders. So they are faster to get rendered. So you see that in this, so we have like a bunch of shaders. I just go edit, delete unused. Some of them are not used. So what I want to use is, so you see that here, let's go to the perspective. Okay, select oranges. Okay, we have oranges, yellow. Where's yellow? It's not on the ball. Anyway, I can just see the orange. I don't see the blue. I don't see. Okay, anyway. So what I would do, I create, so this is what I do. I create a two Arnold shape materials. The new material is here. Arnold surface, AI standard surface, but it was called AI material. But anyway, I just use standard surface. Okay. I use one for the orange, so I call that AI orange, Arnold orange, and the color, base color is, but the base color can follow this one, so you just need to just like give it a tweak and select that one, click, and then select that one. It's there, and you just have to just right click on that one, select objects with this material, and then right click on your AI orange and assign the material. So you can do the same thing for the black side. Clean up here, add AI standard surface, call that AI black, and then make it black. Basically, select that one, assign this one. Okay, now let's see if it is noisy again. So what I do, I just use right click here, camera, and I just drag around the object. Okay, that's nicer, but it is still too noisy. So that's why I go to the setup, Diffuse 3 might be enough. Specularity 3. Transmission. We don't we don't have any subsurface scattering 0. We don't have any volume indirect 0. So yeah, that should be fine, hopefully. So I render that again. Okay, but still too noisy. Okay. So basically, next step is just rendering the scene, the whole frame. So you see that just one frame gets rendered. So but we have to render the whole scene from the beginning to the end. Okay. So how it happens? So first of all, you have to assign a name. So you just open the render setting. You just type a name, and then you say that this is not a single frame. It's a like an image sequence. So it should be like name dot extension dot. So the padding dot extension. How many frames? So it's 120 frames. And I boost up the camera AA a bit to 3. So it's ready to get rendered. So what we do, we just, so I'm gonna leave that to get rendered on another computer. So I need to borrow one of your computers. So while I'm, yeah, can you turn that on? Okay. So while it gets rendered, what we do, I will go and show you how to add effects in Houdini. So and I also render one single frame, maybe this last frame. So I render this frame and I add it in Nuke to the hand. So what I would do, I will open the scene in another computer, and then I go to the rendering, and then okay. So you see that it comes with the shadows. Well, let's go somewhere that we would see the shadows. So maybe the begin, like here. Render again. Okay. Yeah, here. Yeah, it comes with the shadows. All good. So next step is just going to the rendering, render and batch render. But I will do it on another computer. So I save as somewhere on the network. So I save it in the same spot. VFX tracking. Well, here I save it here. And I call that bouncing ball 3. Okay. Okay. One important note I forgot was this camera. So the camera was set to perspective. So I set it to the camera that we are using. You set your camera and leave the rendering. I left the rendering over there. So the batch rendering is happening on this computer. But at the moment, I just save one single frame, this frame, and I use it. So I just save it on desktop. or I just save it, well, on C, test frame. So I save it as EXR, test frame EXR. Guys, you're distracting me too much. Sorry. I save it into my own documents. So users on my own desktop, and I call it test frame. Yes, it's there. So now I open Nuke. You can do it in After Effects, it doesn't matter. Well, what is that? Okay. Okay, so we bring the frame that is rendered or the sequence that is rendered. So you just click R here. R stands for reading, and you point that to the place that it's been saved. I just saved it on my own desktop. Test frame, and I press 1. I bring in the footage as well. The footage is here on footage. It's here. So I can grab the folder here. You know, you just grab, when you drag and drop the folder, it just brings the sequence. So this is the sequence, and this is the foreground. Sequence and foreground, one or two. So you select the foreground and you press M. M stands for merging, and you see that it comes with an A and B. A is your foreground and B is your background. And so you select the latest node and you press 1. It's been added over there. But the point is, this is a 1080p, and for the sake of speed, I'm rendering the ball in the in 720p. So we have to set the project here. So you set the project like that. You press S, and this window appears. S stands for setting the project, and you set the project as either 720 or 1080. Well, I set it as 720. So then I have to rescale that one. So select the background and call reformat. Just select that and press tab and type reformat and add the reformat. So because the project setting is 720p, so the reformat is adjusted to that size. So the frame that is rendered is frame number 36. So I have to move to 36. Well, sorry, it's 120 frames, and I have to move to frame 36. So basically, the ball, that single frame, is this. So now it's time to adjust the time, the color, everything. So the first thing that I add is I select the foreground and I press G. G stands for grading. So you start playing with the gamma. No, it's the rendering is that one. Okay, so the gamma is set. So I think that there's a bit of like bluish everywhere. So I add a bit of. So I click here. I move to blue a bit. More of some multiplication. All good. So it doesn't need to be that sharp. Well, I can add some denoise. So denoise. Uh, Denoise says select the region. So the region is here. I move the region onto the ball. So it removes the noise from that region. Or maybe I move the region to the shadow. That's more okay. 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 So denoise, I apply some denoise. I just deactivate the denoise, select the node and press D. Deactivate the noise because denoise slows down the process. And so what I add here, I add a bit of, so select the foreground, I press B. B stands for blurring. This is too sharp, so if I blur it like one or two is too much. One and maybe 1/3, yeah, something like that. Middle click, so it matches better now. So I hold down Alt and I click here, so I close all the properties. So yeah, so this is one single frame merging with the background. So we're waiting for 120 frames to merge with the background. While we're waiting for the rendering, so which frame is getting rendered now? It's no, that's frame 20. Okay, that's fine. Okay, while we're waiting for that, so how we can send this? So let's say if this is a character that is we are going to send it to Houdini and bring it back. How we do that? So you just select your model, that ball. Let's see. Okay. What's happening here? Okay, so you just select your model, which is this ball. I just want to select the geometry. So I go down below and yeah, the basic ball. Is that the geometry? Yeah, no. Yes, but it seems that there are other stuff down there. When I hide that, no, I cannot hide that. Anyway, so that's the object. So you export the object as Alembic. So you can export your animation out of Maya to Houdini. So those of you who are using Houdini, just listen to this part, is really important. So you select your animated mesh. So it's better to have one single part. So if it is like 10 different pieces, you select all the pieces. And then you go to the cache, Alembic cache, and export selection. So you don't want to export everything. So that's why you just export the cache, Alembic cache, and export selection. And you see that it is from frame 1 to 120, not just 25 frames. So it's 120 frames. So yeah, what we are going to export? We're going to export. You don't want to export normals. So water space, yes. write color sets. We don't use the color sets because we just want to apply effect and then render the effects and apply render somewhere else. Yeah, just that's enough. So if you need any other things, just add it to that. So I export it to just same like desktop. Okay. Here I export it here, and I call that Alembic export. You see that it plays everything and export all of that. Now it's time to open Houdini. I am going to close PFTrack. I close a couple of things we don't need. Okay, so I open Houdini. Okay, so inside Houdini, you just either use this file import Alembic scene, which I don't like. So I like to start with from scratch. So I press tab and then type geometry, add a new geometry, dive into that. So just select the file one and then click on here. Point to the place that your file is saved. Oh, sorry. Load it. Alembic is loaded now. And load one single frame has been loaded. What you can do, so I can show you if we import here, import scene, Alembic scene, same spot again. It's start frame, it's 24 frames per second. Import. Oh, okay. Instead of okay, I'm gonna turn this off because I want to show you how to import it without here, because here it brings some subnetworks and then like layer inside layer and inside layer. It's like 3 layers of the stuff, so I don't like it. So that's, I just want some clean network. So I add a geometry and I call that bouncing ball. Inside that, delete the file and type Alembic. Add an Alembic file instead of like a simple file, and just point to your file, users. Okay, you see that it has a time tag. It means that it's an animation. So the Alembic file has been imported, but where is the animation? Okay, I don't know. So this one, you know, the animation comes with, because yeah, the frames are 60. Yeah, the frames they change, but the other one, I don't know. So yeah, I forgot how to import it clean, but that's all right, because we still can use import Alembic scene. So this object has been imported. So now you can select that one and add your dynamics. Let's say, I don't know, let's say I'm adding a collision ground plane. So this ground plane will be used for dynamic things, and maybe you want to add I don't know, just like a particle fluid, like a dry particles. No, so let's add a pyro effect, like a dry ice effect. That sounds cool. So I select that, I click on the dry ice. I have to select it and press enter. Object level selected, detected. A new object has been created to convert the word space. Thank you. Okay, so, oh. So basically, my object has turned into a, okay, so it just hides my object and creates another object to apply the dynamic. So if you want to, you have to just dive into your network and turn on the bouncing ball. So let's play that. So if I play that, you see that it is the bouncing ball with a dry ice effect, which is so cool. So now, if you want to render that with the same setting and send it to Maya, oh, the ground floor should be lowered, so it's all right up to here, and then when it jumps to the hand, we have to move the ground floor here. Anyway, so how to, so, or you can add fire. I'm going to undo that until the time I added that. Okay, so here I just, okay, so this is what I do. I duplicate the network. So this is the bouncing ball. This is the actual model. You can go press U to jump one step up. You can Ctrl C, Ctrl V, copy that. So you have two things, and hide one of them, select one of them, and just add, I don't know, flames, smokeless flames, or candle. Because it's tiny, candle should work fine. So you see that. Then I duplicated another network for that sake, that I would be able, so you see that a flame has been added on top of that one. And it behaves like a candle flame. So how we send this to Maya? So we can render here. We can render just a flame here and send it to Maya. How we do that? This is what I do. I just go inside Maya and I export the camera as well. So I select the camera, this camera that is here, and I export the camera as export selection on the desktop. And I call it camera, and I export it as FBX. It's exported. Now I come to Houdini, because we need to look through that object, through that camera. Inside Houdini, I import FBX camera. So you see that on the desktop, the camera FBX is there. I just import it, and there's no joint and a skin, there's no light, there's no geometry, animation, or material. It's just a camera, and I import it. The camera is imported as, you see that the camera FBX, and it's here. The camera 1, 2 node, and if I click here, I can see it here. So if I click on that, and then I lock the camera, so you just click here and just change the camera, and then lock the camera. So when you play around, it doesn't change. So basically, whoa, why the camera doesn't move? Oh, okay, that's weird. I have to export that again. Export selection. Oh, that was my fault, I think, because I said no animation. Let me import it again. Import Alembic. Oh no, not Alembic, but import FBX. The camera. Yeah, you see, I turned off the animation. Well, that's my fault. Import. Camera is there. Look through the camera. Lock the camera. Yes, the camera moved now. So this is the camera inside. So the same camera that was inside Maya is inside Houdini now. So now what I have to do, I have to render the flame, but not the ball. So if you go to the lights, and if you add a sky dome, you see that we have a skylight or an ambient light, maybe spotlight, point light, environmental light. Okay, I add an environmental light, and the light environment map, I go and grab that HDR map. You remember that? The same HDR map that was used inside Maya here, HDR2, the same HDR map is supposed to be used inside Houdini. So I go and select HDR2. So that light has been added. So when you render that, so don't do that. Okay. Lights HDR just loaded. When I go to the render view and I press render, oh, I have to stop the rendering. I have to select the camera that I'm going to render and then press render. I see the fire gets rendered, but the ball, the bouncing ball gets rendered as well. But you want the bouncing ball to get rendered in a separate pass. It's already getting rendered over there. So here, if I would be able to add, a black holding object instead of the bouncing ball, that would be great. So you see, this is what Houdini renders. So if I press A, so this is your alpha channel, but we don't want the ball to get rendered. So this is what we do. You click here, you go to the materials. So let's go back to the scene view. Go to the materials, and we already have the candle material here. The candle material should be there. That's all right. So let's go. So I'm going to go to the objects, and I turn off this pyro imports for now. I don't want it to distract me. So I go to the material, click here, go to the material, and then I click tab and type matte. We have a matte, which is just a black entity, and then you click and drag and I'm going to drag and drop it on the objects. There is something around the object. Okay. Yes. Yes, ultimate. So there are, it seems that there are, okay. So I turn this off. What is this bouncing? So, yeah, there's a halo around the ball. So that was what scared me. So I just want the ball to be visible. I go to the material and then I drag and drop this matte on the ball. Go back to the object level. I just turn on the things that I have hidden, like this one and the flame, which is pyro import. Let's check the render view again. So press render. So what we okay, now what you see that the bouncing ball is not, it's just a black surface in the middle and the alpha channel is not visible. So this is basically what we want. Now it's time to output. So I go to the out. At the moment an IPR, which is a test render, is there. But what I would do, I just add a mantra node. Mantra is the Houdini's render. So you see that Maya's render is Arnold or Redshift. You can have Redshift for Houdini as well. It is installed, but it is not active. Anyway, so just add a mantra node. You can delete that one. So this is what you have to. So when I click here, I can start rendering. But before rendering, I have to set it up. So I double click on mantra node, and I set the so the camera is camera. The camera is this camera. It's not camera 1. Accept. And then image is going to get rendered, output picture on my desktop. And I call that new folder flame. Accept. And then I accept that. And the file is called flame underline. I don't know. Accept that. And output. Do you want to output auto-generate shadow maps, environment maps, photo maps? All good. 16 point, floating point, extra image plane. If you need to render AOVs or different passes like shadow pass, shading pass, like normal map pass, just tick these here. Deep output for deep compositing, crypto matte, we don't need it now. So just rendering, ray tracing. Everything seems alright. Objects, driver. Okay. Render. Just want to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Okay, I hope so. So you can render to disk. When you click that, or click here, specify frame range 1 to 20, resolution. Specify resolution. We are going to render at 720, and quality normal. Dependency rendering setting, we don't need it, so just click render. And you see that it starts rendering it here. So the first frame is getting rendered. So it's rendering now. So the ball is getting rendered over there. The flame here, and then I composite these two together. So I pause it for now. To wrap it up, so 36 frames just rendered, that's fine. And I moved some already rendered footage of the bouncing ball here. So I can load them into Nuke. So the rendering is just happening. So you see that I'm going to replace this single frame with an image sequence. Nothing happens for that frame, but you will see that the ball is just has some movements. So the ball needs to be brighter, I believe. Okay. And then okay, so and then the ball jumps. Well, so basically I have copied just 98 frames. So let's set up the projects up to, so let's say 95. So this is all we got. I was hoping to have it, the last frame. So we will move once it gets. So let's add the first few frames of the flame. The flame has already rendered up to frame 43. I press R and it is on desktop and it is called flame, and where it goes, so I forgot to add the frame padding, that's why it created the problem. I go back to Houdini, I interrupt the rendering, I go back to Houdini. What was the problem? Okay, so what I do is I need to add a padding here. So like $F4, it means that like $F means frame and 4 means 4 frames padding dot maybe EXR. You can add different paddings like $OS or 0S dot. So we'll talk about these different padding, and I'm going to render as OpenEXR, not just basic rendering. So if I press render again, so the rendering of the image just started. 1%. So the first frame should, so this, it goes to frame 2. Now it is the time to check if it is working. Yes, it has started to work. So frame 1, frame 2. So just 3 frame has been rendered. So what I do, I just load those 3 frames and then adjust the comp based on those like 3-4 frames, and then we just wait for the render to get done. So I go here, refresh, yes, 1 to 4. So let's go to the beginning. So basically, let's have a look at the flame for 4 frames. So I select that one, press 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. So at frame 4, I see a bit of flame, but there is no alpha channel. That's why I am going to extract the alpha channel out of the flame's color channels. So I just say that, so I add a shuffle node. So this shuffle node says that the alpha channel comes from, so let's say I can say that RGB alpha, they are all there, but I swap the alpha from alpha to G, to red. So now when I press A, you will see that the alpha channel is following the red channel, which is like what we want. So now I add this M on top of the bouncing ball. You can just drag and leave it there, so it gets added to there. So you see that the flame has been added. And if I press 1 now, you see that the flame has been added on top. So now we have to just wait and until we get a couple of frames ready, and then we just put them on top of each other and then wrap it up. So the whole 120 frames has been rendered. I just load that one again. So now we can have 120 frames. So you see that the time that the ball, so I'm going to just hide that one, stands on her hand, we have that moment as well. So this is what we have to do, some keying, well, masking. But we'll sort that out. And we have 26 frames of, or how many? 30 frames of flame rendered as well. So I just double click on that. Click on the frames, 32 frames. So you see that, okay, the flame is too harsh. So first of all, I make it transparent. How? So this merge has a mix, so you can play with that. So maybe that much, and then you can add select the shuffle node, and so you see that. So this is our tree. The flame on top, and then the ball, and then they are all added on top of the background. So spacebar back to here. So I added a grade node here. You can play around with the flame. So the flame, make it like a more reddish and a bit dark here. So like multiply, play with these white points. Okay, so the first, and it needs a bit of blurriness, so it's like very pointy, very there's a lot of noise over there. So I add a B and I add like 1, 2 blurriness, which is fine. Okay, so you see that it gets burned quickly. Okay. Yeah, then it just, okay. Okay, so once that gets done, we have it all. But what about that frame? So this is what we have to fix about. So let's work on the moment that it lands on her hand here. So this is where we have to add a masking. So you can select the ball and then you add press O stands for roto, and then you roto, so you can, so basically what you can do, you can say okay, what I like, I usually make the roto node on a separate tree. So I add a roto here, and then RGBA, and then I multiply roto with, so you see that if I select this area and then I multiply this roto, so I merge it, but in the merge setup I say it's multiply. So you see that that part stays. Now it's time to work on these nodes. So basically we want from like, we have to just, so instead of a roto node like that, I delete that roto node. I make, I press here and press O again. I click and drag. When you click and drag, it becomes like a spline, but it becomes like a bezier. So basically, I just make a nice part over here. But you see that it just shows that part. So instead of that, well, and then should be RGBA. It should be reversed. So I select that one and I type invert, and it gets inverted. And so if I close that one, you see that it's in the middle of her hand, but the edges are too sharp. So you just select your inverted mask and press B and add a bit of blurriness. Not too much. So this is too much. So like 2.5 is fine. Okay. So yeah, and then you start animating your mask. So you can go a couple of frames forward. So you can just select the background and press 3. So you just see the background. Oh no, the reformatted background, and press 3. And then you start to move this around. So yes, you can. I just don't want to complicate the things. Yeah, you can do it. You can use a track node in Nuke, and it's very easy. It's just drag and drop. I just don't want to make it too complicated at the moment, because these lower parts are not important. Okay, so I did like just few frames of just animated the mask. It's easy. So I go press 1 again. I can Alt close all the options to make sure. I'm going to turn off the flame for now. Select the flame, press D, stands for deactivate. So yeah, so you see that it lands on her hand. So we have to work on a couple of impact. So just the same way that I added a plate here, and standing plate here to catch that shadow, I should have added a standing plate for inside her hand. So just an object inside her hand, so that object catches some shadow from the ball. So you see that some errors here will show up, but that's all right. So let's load the flame So the flame is at 64. I activate that, double click on that, and I click on the, so 64. So I'm gonna close it up to 64, 65 basically, and then play it again. What? And then jump. So yeah, a very simple animation from the beginning to the end. We did the tracking, we animated the object, we rendered the object, we did some simulation in Houdini, we added the simulation on top of the objects, we did compositing, everything. So it was a whole pipeline. So it was a small production pipeline. So I call that, so I saved the movies into here. So let's call it pipeline. And it is PFTrack, Maya, Houdini, and Nuke. Okay. Thank you.